Thus, now every year on June 23rd, the world marks United Nations Public Service Day. This day celebrates the value and virtue of public service to the community. It also highlights the contribution of public service in the development process. The Public Service Day also recognizes public servants' work and encourages the young generation to pursue careers in the public sector. We want to have this conversation, and joining me in studio is Ambassador Patrick Wamoto, who is the PSC Commissioner. Thank you very much and good afternoon to you. Thank you for joining us here on News Desk. Maybe I'll just start by asking you, what exactly is the value of public service in the community?
Well, the public service is the cornerstone of any government programs, any government work, especially in a developmental state like ours. All programs are mostly delivered by the public service. And so the value of the public service cannot be gainsaid. We are at the center of all the activities of government.
All right, being at the center of all the activities of government, do you perhaps do a self-audit on yourself to find out what exactly the gaps are? And if so, what are the gaps?
Well, we do. At the end of every year, we do. I mean, the Public Service Commission, which I work for, is one of the Chapter 15 commissions. And part of our work is to do an evaluation at the end of every year to see whether the public service is delivering services in an efficient and effective manner. And we do submit a report at the end of every year on the activities of the entire public service.
So are there any gaps so far?
Well, yes, there are gaps. I mean, what we've been doing in the last few months, I mean, we've been now in the office for the last 2 years. We are beginning our third year. And one of the major programs or major activities we have undertaken, we've been doing a function analysis of all the departments and ministries so that we identify the gaps and see whether we can do better than we've done in the past. And we've just completed that exercise where we are aligning the functions to the mandates of the various departments and also trying to see whether look at the staffing gaps. And in the process, we've been able to move quite a number of staff upwards in terms of promotions, and that has also really motivated the civil service.
All right, the COVID-19 pandemic has affected all sectors, as we know. How exactly has it affected public service delivery?
The COVID-19 pandemic is not only a public health crisis, it's also a governance crisis, because it has very much affected the way government delivers services. It has also impacted on the transparency that we all want to see in the public service, especially in terms of procurement, some of the emergency medicines and what have you. It has impacted in the sense that when you look at the way things are happening now, whether you talk of the frontline health workers, whether you talk of the teachers, whether you talk of the sanitation workers, or even the rubbish, I mean, the collectors of the rubbish that we dispense every day, there are serious challenges. And what we are trying to do in the public service is to see whether we can be a bit more innovative. And if you look at teaching, for instance, when the schools closed, we had to come up with innovations where the programs were delivered online, where the infrastructure existed. When we, at the Public Service Commission itself, we have also had to become quite innovative in the sense that we had to carry on with our work of recruiting public service workers, and our activities actually have never stopped. We had to go online, and right now as we speak, we conduct online interviews. We have a very active platform where the young people are now able to apply for positions online, and we are also trying to ensure that we reach out to all the 47 counties, and one of the programs that we are putting in place is interview centers, where our young people don't have to travel to Nairobi for interviews. They go to those dedicated centers where we interview them, and they only show up in Nairobi if we have given them positions.
Okay, before we even get to how we can leverage IT on improving service delivery, you talk about serious challenges that were experienced due to COVID-19. Maybe you can just point out a few of those challenges.
There are many challenges because offices were shut. Justice could not be administered. You remember the courts were shut, and for some time we couldn't administer justice. Businesses were disrupted. So we focused mostly on the challenge of trying to make sure that everybody's safe and everybody's well. But most of the other activities were basically down. I mean, whether you're talking of the engineers on the roads, you're talking of, people, going around and making sure that our economic activities are up and down, up and going. Everything was disrupted. So the only thing that we focused on was basically providing healthcare to the Kenyan population. But I would say almost everything that we do was affected by the outbreak of COVID. And we are just now trying to get back to normal.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, let's now talk about the IT. How exactly do we leverage on IT to make sure that public delivery is not only accessible, but also effective?
Well, the civil service of the future, the way we look at it, must be tech-savvy, must be data-oriented. And in fact, if you look at some of the facilities available now in the public service, if take, for instance, the land records, look at the renewal of driving licenses, look at issuance of passports. These are just a few that we've already brought on board. But eventually, looking forward, we foresee a situation where most of the services will be provided online. And this requires that we all embrace technology, we become tech-savvy, we know how to deal with data. And of course, that is also why we've now put in place an Office of Data Commissioner, so the data is not abused. But moving forward, technology is the way to go.
Okay. I'll just refer from one of your posts, one that was posted actually today on Facebook, saying that you're going to be here on KTN News. And one of the people following the account actually asked about transparency. How exactly do you ensure that there is transparency when it comes to service delivery in the country?
One of the functions that we undertake is to ensure that all public organizations comply with the provisions of Articles 10 and 232 of the Constitution. And every year we make a report to the President and to Parliament on the compliance of all institutions, public, to those two articles in the Constitution. But on a daily basis, we audit. We have a compliance and quality control department that goes around ministries to ensure that, just to look at what ministries are doing and to ensure that they are playing by the rules. And of course, we are trying to put in place, or rather to emphasize, a value-driven public service. And that is why for us, the Constitution is critical, and especially Articles 10 and 232, which clearly specify the values of governance and the public service. And our work on a daily basis is to ensure that we inculcate in the civil service the values that are defined in the Constitution. And if I may also just talk about one of the programs that we are running, the internship program, where we've been able to bring on board 10,000 interns since we came into office. These are part of experiential learning where the young people leave college and they come and practice some of their skills. The idea is to make them employable, not really to give them permanent jobs. But when positions come up, they compete with all the other young graduates. But one of the intentions is to ensure that we inculcate in them the values so that if they join the civil service, they are already on board with the values that are very well defined.
The theme this year is innovating for a new era, leveraging the role of technology for the future of public service. Of course, right now we are in a tricky situation worldwide, and Kenya is facing the same. So many people are unemployed. But let's not forget that Kenyans are very innovative. If a youth or anyone, any Kenyan has an idea that could help public service, are they free to share? If so, what are the ways of doing it?
Well, the Ministry for Youth and, they have a whole department that deals with innovation. And the idea is to encourage the youth to come up with innovations. And also during this public service week, we actually reward those who have come up with innovations. And it's part of our intention to ensure that we encourage our young people to come up with all manner of innovations so that they can help the economy and the country to move forward. But we have a Ministry of Youth which has a department that encourages and deals with the issues of innovation.
As we conclude, what should Kenyans expect from you as we celebrate this day?
Well, Kenyans should expect a revamped and an empowered public service. Or what I can say is that initially we had a narrative that used to say that if you cut down on public services, then the world becomes more effective and at no cost to anybody. But COVID has shown us that what we need is a revamped and an empowered public service, because the public service is at the center of almost all our activities, and we cannot run away from it. And all we can do is ensure that we develop capacity and the infrastructure so that the public service can stand up, especially in future if we were to have more crisis, because you can't rule out another COVID or another crisis coming up. And the idea is to make the public service more prepared to deal with such issues in future.
All right. Thank you very much, Ambassador Patrick Wamoto, who is PSC Commissioner, for joining us, of course, and sharing all that you have about public service delivery. Thank you very much.